Hello, gorgeous, and welcome to the Midlife Realignment. I'm your host, Esther Blum, and I'm here to disrupt the narrative on perimenopause and menopause with humor, nutrition, hormones, and fierce self-advocacy. Together, we'll rewrite your story and the rules because there's a light at the end of the vaginal tunnel. Let's go. Colette Fehr is a licensed psychotherapist and author of The Cost of Quiet: How to Have the Hard Conversations That Create Secure, Lasting Love. She also co-hosts the hit podcast Insights from the Couch, Real Talk for Women at Midlife, and the relationship radio show Love Thy Neighbor. Her 2025 TEDx talk, Secrets of a Couples Therapist, was selected as a TED editor's pick, and her insights have appeared in media outlets including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, Oprah Daily, and Huffington Post. Colette has dedicated her career toward helping people find greater emotional freedom and create more securely attached relationships with others and themselves. And I hope you will find, like I did, that she is really a sister from another mister who's been through all the real things and is a highly relatable and wonderful human. Enjoy the podcast. So Colette, I have your book here, The Cost of Quiet. I have watched your TED Talk, which was featured as one of TEDx's favorites. I feel like I'm in immersion and I love it. I love it. I love it. And what do you call your people-pleasing recovery program? You call it
Yeah. So I call it good girl-itis, and then I talk about going to this school that I've graduated from the anti-people-pleasing university.
That's it. Okay, well, this is such a great way to launch the conversation because I loved your book. When I was reading it, I was like, yep, check, 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 check. And really, I feel like you speak to every woman who has either good girl-itis or just has trouble fully communicating based on the models we got or didn't get in childhood. So I would love for you to start just sharing your story of your childhood and how that kind of set up the patterns in your first marriage and how you overcame that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I do think it's something that's so much more commonplace than people realize. And first, I just want to start by saying, even though my book is The Cost of Quiet, quiet really is a euphemism for avoiding. And there's so many ways we do that. Not everybody suppresses or goes silent in these hard conversations. Some of us get loud, we protest, we lash out, and even those are things that I have come to define as forms of avoidance. So I really lay out a lot of strategies around this. But in particular with women, what I notice as a couples therapist is people come in saying, I communicate and I'm the one who communicates. And I think I fell into this trap in my first marriage where I felt like I was communicating at the time, but I wasn't getting through. And I didn't really realize that I wasn't communicating the right way. I wasn't communicating as deeply. I wasn't connected to myself. I wasn't sending my mature adult part that I call the sage self to the conversation, right? I was criticizing or dropping hints. And much of this is because I had this underlying people-pleasing thing that very much came out of a couple things. One, I think, was in childhood. My parents had a really difficult divorce. I had an idyllic early childhood, really great. And then when I was in middle school, my parents started arguing. They didn't get divorced till I was a freshman in college. So there were a lot of years of separating and getting back together and a lot of verbal animosity that I witnessed. And I remember lying in bed at night listening to them fight and thinking, oh my God, first of all, conflict is bad. And one day I'm going to have the perfect marriage and it's not going to be like this. We're going to never argue. That was my goal. That was what I thought the answer was. And of course, things aren't so black and white because there's a big difference between destructive conflict and healthy conflict. But I didn't know this. And I picked a partner I met on the first day of school when I was 18 years old at college, who, seemed like the rescue fantasy I had in my mind, like the perfect partner. And he was very much avoidant as well, not
Mm.
even in the attachment style sense, just someone who grew up in a really lovely but very southern family where everything got brushed under the rug. And I thought that was actually the healthy way to do it because my parents said everything, but they were a disaster. And I grew up in a very, I grew up in Rye, New York, and went to school in Greenwich, Connecticut. I grew up Catholic. Nobody got divorced. So I felt like I had this stigma on me and my parents that we were these messy, emotionally out of control people, and everybody else had this polished veneer of like perfection, country club perfection. And
Yeah.
that's what I thought the answer was. So, of course, as I got older, I started to have emotional needs and become a fully fleshed woman and realize, wow, I'm filled with so much resentment. I'm so angry. I ended up divorced, and only looking back and becoming a therapist did I realize that I had played a huge role in the demise of the marriage and that I hadn't known how to communicate at all. And while I'll never know if it would have made a difference, I know I regret that I didn't try and I didn't know how to do my part.
What really struck me was the story you tell when you had your first daughter. You're sitting on the couch, nipples leaking milk, right? And your husband is watching commercials and a golf game, and he's laughing, and you're like, I am crumbling and
Dying.
dying inside. How does he not see me? You want to like talk about that? So I get goosebumps. You want to talk about because it's such a, we all know just postpartum can be such a shit show on a good day. And
Yep.
then to have a partner you're not feeling connected to, you're so alone and you're so exhausted and in this nursing haze. Like, what was going on back then?
Yeah, that's really when I think it all started to come to the forefront, and part of why I tell that story in the book. I think I was content to people please and suppress my needs. I'd make little half-assed attempts to say something and it would get shot down. Most things got dismissed. I would hear that I was dramatic or making a mountain out of a molehill, or even things along the lines of like, you have a great life, why are you unhappy? And I would hear that even after I had my first daughter. But that's where I could no longer go along. I had what I now know was postpartum depression, the anxious variety, where I just was not okay. I was a very young mom by my standards of growing up. I was only 26. I lived far away from home. I didn't have my mom around or any family, and I didn't even have any friends who were having kids yet. My friends were still out in bars in New York City getting drunk, hooking up, and here I am with a kid and this totally emotionally disconnected husband. And so I'm drowning. I had an anal fissure. I had nearly died in childbirth. I stopped breathing. My daughter stopped breathing and had to be taken away and resuscitated. Every part of my body was just completely ravaged. And then I had this postpartum issue. And at this point, I'm getting the message. I'm no longer able to just swallow the fact that I need someone logistically and emotionally. And I'm still getting that same message. You don't have a job. Sleep when the baby sleeps. Everything's fine. I don't know what you're so upset about. And this is where it really turned into rage because I was like, I don't even feel like I'm myself anymore. And I can't get you to see me or hear me. Now, I still didn't put together coherent, clear messages about what I was experiencing. But that's where I started to realize, hey, this isn't okay. This isn't going to work. And that moment on the couch, you're right, I'll never forget it. It was Tiger Woods, and he's got his feet up. He's sipping a glass of wine. He's all invested in Tiger. And I've got tears. I'm like clutching the monitor because I'm scared she's going to suffocate on the bumper because I have so much anxiety, right? The bumper in the crib. I don't even feel like I can relax. And he's just oblivious. And this is where things really started to go into the danger zone of that silent divorce where eventually I burned out and gave up. And I really was divorced only a few years later.
Yeah. And I don't think it's uncommon, and especially what I think happens in midlife too. We'll get to that later. But Also, when you were told by this man who at the time was your husband, like, I give you everything. How can you respond to that? I don't know a person on the planet who wouldn't shut down and think, all right, it must be me. I must be crazy because I'm sleep deprived. And oh, by the way, I almost died and I'm shut down from that trauma. So yeah, it tells you the message like, well, you have the country club marriage, so therefore nothing can be wrong. You can't feel your feelings. Your feelings aren't justified.
It's so invalidating. It's so gaslighty, and I don't throw that word around. I don't think there was any intent to gaslight me. He was replicating the template that he saw in his parents' marriage. I mean, he had a mother who did everything with a smile, even when she was dying inside. And that actually isn't me. That isn't me, and I could no longer fake it. And I did have this very bifurcated reaction where one part of me, you do doubt yourself, and you go, okay, why can't I be happy, right? Like, what is really wrong? I'm okay. Why do I feel so not okay? And then I had another part of me that was like, no, I'm not okay, and it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay not to pretend that I'm not okay. And that was really where the old marriage and the old contract needed to end. And at 26 years old, I needed to start to find and use my voice. And we could have had things gone differently, gotten the right help, both of us been willing, negotiated a very new dynamic where we both learned how to tune in and really communicate and really listen. But that's not the way it went. We had a surface marriage where everything looked good from the outside looking in, but there was no emotional connection. And we continued in that direction. And I say in my TEDx talk, he had given me everything I ever wanted, except the one thing I wanted most, which was him.
Yeah, and that sense of connection. And
No connection.
That's the greatest irony. The universe was like, ha, 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 Colette, I'm here to, like, you think what you think is safe? Oh, hell no, girl. It's the opposite.
It's worse. Yes,
worse.
I came to realize my parents were actually healthier because at least, there was a better way to handle it, but the truth was being said and real emotions were being said. And in fact, I think that's the greatest gift my parents gave me is they were always very emotionally validating of me. But even if you don't have this kind of spouse, I think this is important to recognize, and we know it, that society has really conditioned women for so many generations to be people pleasing, to be needless, to put everyone else first and ourselves last. And I think we're starting to change that. But a lot of it is that we don't start to break out of it until menopause or perimenopause when our estrogen goes down.
And the filter goes along with it.
And we just don't give as much of a shit.
Right. Okay, let's go there then. I'm curious what percentage of women that you see in your practice are in menopause versus early marriage, because I have seen the statistic that this is the highest age bracket for divorce. And I know multiple friends or family members of mine who are leaving their partners now as we speak and are like, the contract I signed with myself in my 20s no longer is valid because I'm not tolerating that, or I'm not the version of myself I was when we started. I have changed. They haven't. So let's open the kimono on your practice a little and talk about this.
Majority of people I work with, I have a private practice where I specialize in couples therapy. I also work with individual adults on relational issues. So a lot of women going through divorce or who are divorced and newly dating. And I also do coaching with women around midlife stuff in general. So those are my people. And I'm also in the group. So I also think, really doing good, deep couples therapy, that's not something, it's not, there isn't really like equity in that either. Like we have talked about in terms of healthcare, couples therapy is expensive. So I think for all of those reasons, I have a lot more people in the midlife age bracket. And I also think you attract kind of where you are. A younger couples therapist is going to have younger couples. That said, It is absolutely true that the overall rates of divorce have gone down, but the gray divorce after 50 for a long-term marriage, is the number one group of divorce that's on the rise. And this
Wow.
is for exactly the reasons you've enumerated. But one thing I point out in the book and explain a lot is that, contrary to popular belief, it isn't really infidelity or financial issues or
Right.
parenting or a crisis that ends relationships. It's really emotional disconnection. And with the
Hmm.
midlife gray divorce, often these relationships have been disconnected for so long. Usually the
Yeah.
woman initiates, and it's because she is burned out. She is detached finally, and she's no longer willing to stay in this thing that feels like it weighs her down.
Yes. And she doesn't want to take care of other people anymore either. She only
Right,
wants to take care of herself. She
right.
doesn't even want to be partnered with anyone else or get married again. She's like, they say the people who live the longest are single women,
I
actually,
know,
because they're
no.
taking care of themselves.
And the
And
men who live the longest are married men.
yes,
Because
ah,
marriage is
yes,
good for men and not good for women. Now, that said, this is really a sign that when a woman is saying, and we hear this so much at midlife, I don't want to take
yeah,
care of anyone. I've been doing that forever. It's really a sign that it's been too much. And
yeah,
now the pendulum's swinging, because when that caretaking is reciprocal in a healthy relationship and
yeah,
balanced, it's so healthy and satisfying for both. But so many
yeah,
of us haven't enjoyed that kind of dynamic. It's been all put myself last. And this is an
yes,
unpopular opinion, but we as women have to take responsibility for a large part of that. We can't sit and blame society or blame men, because that gives
that's
our
right.
power away. We have to say, what did I do? Where did I silence myself? Where did I agree to put
Yeah,
myself last? Nobody made me. I'm not saying there isn't pressure, but how am I going to move forward? Because connection is really, really good for us. In fact, the number
yeah.
one predictor of a long, happy life is having deep quality connection, which doesn't have to come from a romantic partner, but can in a healthy dynamic. Or for
Yes.
many women, we thrive because we're so connected to friends, adult
Yes.
children. We men don't tend to have that outside of marriage as much.
I know, which breaks my heart too. It really, there's so many lonely men out there, and that's a whole epidemic too.
Yep.
But back to the women. Yes, I mean, the motto really should be, you're 100% responsible for 50% of the problem. And most women in this generation, at least, were raised by professional people pleasers. There was inevitably unspoken trauma. Think about all the people who immigrated, who had to come to this country, learn the
Yep.
language, raise kids, or raise
Do it
kids
all.
as a single adult, no money. There was so much to it. And so
Yeah, we're
being
the product of that. I
we're the
mean, my
product of that.
grandmother, who is my spirit animal, I had two wonderful grandmothers, but my father's mother, who I felt very connected to when I was newly married, she would say to me, she raised six kids. She had been a concert pianist. She went to NYU School of Music, which was unheard of. She'd
Wow.
be over 100 now. Dropped out to marry my grandfather. He was a doctor, raised six kids. She would say to me in all earnestness, Colette, just because I was saying I don't feel connected and I'm struggling with these babies and I don't like this marriage anymore. And she would say, Colette, you just need to make sure the house is spotless and you have a smile on your face, and go reapply your lipstick,
Yeah.
change your outfit, make sure you have a good meal. I'm Italian, so she was like, you have to cook for your. And I remember looking at her and saying, are you insane? Is this how you live? You are nuts. This is not going to work for me, lady.
Yeah, I would rather die first.
Yes,
Reapplying the lipstick. And I have heard that too from older generations. I'm like, what is it with the fucking lipstick
lipstick.
already?
Fuck the
Lipstick.
lipstick. Yes,
Did you just throw your lipstick?
yes, yes. I
That's it.
wasn't
And have a
even
Rob
wearing
Roy in
lipstick.
your hand for your husband. Like, oh my God. Like, it,
That's what she thought the answer
yeah, it
was.
was Mad
Basically,
Men.
Mad Men. And
Yeah.
that was the poster of the people we were raised by. So I think
Yeah.
Gen X is in a really unique position of
Yeah.
saying, you know what, that didn't work. We know it. We've
Yeah.
watched our mothers be really resentful and unhappy
Yeah.
later in life, many of us, and we don't want that.
Yes, that's right. And there was, yes, 100%. It was, my mother was so much happier when she went back to work. She was a nurse and, home, my father was a doctor and, she was handling the carpools and all the cooking and the cats and the laundry. And my dad got to come in and out, fix himself a drink, read the paper in his lazy boy when he came home. And
Yep.
he was not lazy by any means. It's just that was the role she knew she needed to fill or assigned to herself. And so,
Exactly.
yeah. And they had a
Exactly.
great marriage. They were together 55 years but there was, and as well as they communicated, my father would say to me, you have to be able to talk to each other. And they were partners and best friends. They had a true friendship and a true romantic relationship. But at the same time, those years she was home, she was not nearly as happy as when she was working. It lit her up inside.
Same
And
with my mom. And even though my parents ended up divorced, my mom was the traditional
mm,
one for a while. My dad also is a doctor. And eventually, my mom went back to law school and
ah,
developed her own career long before they got divorced. And she too was
mm,
happier. And that doesn't mean that that's the answer for everyone. I have friends that have not worked and are happy. But I think you have to really get in touch with you and what's true for you. I know for me, one of many lessons of my first marriage and divorce is that I was not meant to be a stay at home mom. That was one
mm,
layer. And I love being a mom. My daughters are my life. That goes without saying. But for me, I wanted to have my own thing. And I am
yeah,
happier having, my own source of intellectual stimulation and career and success on that front. And that's not something that's
yes,
important to everyone, but it was important to me.
yes.
And the Mad Men formula was definitely not going to work.
That was not gonna work.
No, no. And I don't think that version obviously works for anybody, but it's crazy, Esther, how women really don't think most of the women I'm speaking to and that I work with in my practice are really smart, successful, and emotionally intelligent, and they don't think of themselves as non communicative. And so, in a way, I've written
Yeah.
this book for people who don't even realize the problem is there that I'm
Mhm.
trying to bring light to. Most of these women are not like me in my first marriage. They know what they want, but it's certain key moments in a
Mhm.
relationship because of
Mhm.
the way we're wired biologically and this neurobiological paradox of being wired for both safety and connection at the same time. We want to be heard, we want our needs to be met, but we have all kinds of false beliefs like they should know or that are the siren song of avoidance. They make us
Mhm.
hold back really being vulnerable and assertive in these key moments in order to protect the relationship or protect ourselves from disappointment. And those are the places where we're abandoning ourselves and we
Yeah.
don't realize it.
You know your body. When you think your hormones are off, you're right. When you think your gut function is off, you're right. In 30 years of practice, every woman who came to me knowing something was wrong was always right. My Make Menopause Your Bitch Elite program is where we do targeted testing that makes it impossible for you to fail. I look at your blood work, Dutch, and GI map tests and build a targeted protocol based on what's happening in your body. You come in exhausted and dismissed, and you leave knowing exactly what to do. Apply at estherblum.com/MMYB. You don't have to suffer, and you don't have to do this alone. Apply at estherblum.com/MMYB. There was a really good case study you put in the book. I don't remember if the woman's name was Margot or it was the one where she was pissed off because her husband kept leaving the stinky soccer clothes. And she felt like after a while she was
Grace,
going to stop asking. And then her husband felt like all she did was criticize. So, can you unpack that just to give a really just so we can give it a case study that kind of anchors
Yeah.
what you're speaking about.
I love that particular case because it is representative of more than 80% of the dynamics. So I think people will relate to this. And it was Grace and Andrew. They're actually both doctors too.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're both busy working parents, and they're both children of immigrants. So they're high achievers. They have a good marriage. They love each other. They have 3 kids. So their house is like madness. And in this case, Grace was actually a dermatologist with managing multiple offices, but her husband was a pulmonologist and would work a lot of nights in the hospital. And to him, he's so much more involved. His dad was a good man, but his dad was a Korean immigrant and really was not involved emotionally or hands-on. So to Andrew, he's like such a hands-on dad. He's doing so much. He takes the kids to stuff. He picks them up. And he feels like somehow Grace is never happy with him. He never gets anything right? She's always criticizing. Now for Grace, she grew up in a very achievement-oriented family. And she is just a performance machine, top of her class. She's really hyper independent. And this is a lot of women that I see in my practice, right? We don't let ourselves need anyone. And I can run like this too, big time, right? I'm fine. I can do it better myself. I don't even need to ask. Yeah. But then we can end up resenting. So Grace feels like so many women today that the mental load, the task load, and we know from the numbers, it's still falling heavily on women, disproportionately on women.
Yeah.
Yep. Even though men are more involved than ever. In fact, in 1965, men did less than 10 hours of childcare and household chores. In today's world, it's 30 hours. So
a week, a month?
A week.
A week. Okay.
Yes, a week. Thank you for clarifying that. But we have so much more now. So many women are working. Parenting is so much more involved that we're all just overwhelmed. But you can see Grace feels like Andrew's not doing enough. Andrew feels like I'm doing so much and you're never happy. And they get into, on the surface, the pattern that in therapy we call pursue, withdraw, or what I identify in the book, like these bickering loops that are about criticize and defensiveness. That's the most common dynamic. Now, of course, Grace doesn't really think she's critical. Andrew doesn't really think he's defensive, but that's what's happening at the surface. So this story I tell is that one day she comes home after a day of seeing a gazillion patients and managing all the staff at her multiple offices. Andrew was supposed to pick up one of their sons from lacrosse. He did, but he comes home and leaves the lacrosse bag with all the stinky clothes in the closet. A woman would never do this, right? No. Because it stinks up everything.
Yeah, it goes right into the washing machine.
Right.
Then and there. Of course.
Because it will only create more work for later. Yeah. But the inner voice, the story is that he doesn't care because I'll be the one to do it. And so he just does what he wants and leaves it thoughtlessly for me. So she goes in and she's like, why did you leave the lacrosse bag? What's wrong with you? This is why I'm frustrated with you. Yeah. And of course he gets defensive. Like, I did everything you asked and I also have had a hard day. And then you're going to be like on my ass about an innocent mistake. I didn't mean to leave it for you. I just left it there. So this little moment is a snapshot of their dynamic. And by the time they've come to see me, Grace is saying, Andrew's telling me, I don't even know why we're here. We're fine. We have a great marriage. Everything's good. Right? Clueless. Grace is telling me, no, we're not fine. I feel totally emotionally disconnected. I'm starting to hate him because I don't feel like I'm getting heard. I can't get him to participate more. And my job and what I talk about in the book and the process I give is to teach each of them this process of self-connected communication where they can go deeper than what's happening at the surface and stop criticizing and getting defensive, which doesn't let anyone feel heard or understood or solve any problems, and do some work inside first to uncover what's motivating these responses and what they really need. Because what we find is a lot of times people don't even know what they're really feeling. They can't name their emotions, and they don't know what their needs are. So you can't express your need if you don't know what it is. And we've got old wounds from childhood that are playing into why we get so reactive, right? For Grace, it really was never okay to ask for help. It really, in her family, she had to do it all. So she hasn't learned to be vulnerable about asking for help. And then she's mad when Andrew doesn't help the way she wants, right? And for Andrew, he was always criticized as a child. He could never get less than an A or he would be in trouble. So when Grace says, you left the bag, he's reliving that. And if they can go deeper and recognize that and speak for that in a clear, calm way, then they can come forward and say, hey, when you left the lacrosse bag, I felt a surge of such anger. In that moment, the story in my mind is that you don't care about me and how much work I have. You just leave it for me like I'm the hired help. Right? She names it as the story.
And I think every woman relates to that, by the way. They do.
Yes.
Everyone.
I've been there.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. And in the moment, you want to protest and say, what the hell is wrong with you? This isn't okay. But when we do that, we set off the other person's alarm bells. We trigger them into their own wounds. And then we don't get heard and we don't get our needs met. So it's not just about tap dancing around someone else. The point of feelings and expressing yourself is to get your emotional needs met. And that's what this is all about.
Yes. And from Andrew's perspective too, like he was wounded because he's like, I did all these wonderful things and now it's not about the laundry bag. Like the laundry bag to me, I just put it in the closet. It wasn't a thing. So how does he recover from that? Because I think a lot of men will relate to this too, is like, I did all these amazing things. So now you're giving, you called it the relationship report card, right? Like you're giving me a D. What happened? I thought I was an A student.
Exactly. So I identify, because I love these little analogies and acronyms that help us remember, but the top communication things that shut down communication that I call the bad communication report card. It's 3 D's and an F. And it's defensiveness, distancing, dismissiveness, and fixing, where you share something and somebody immediately tries to solve the problem. We know only 69% of problems actually are unsolvable. Only 31% of a couple's problems are solvable from the research. So most conversations need to be about emotional connection and safety. And when problems are solvable, we do that first and then that second.
Which, again, that statistic was staggering to me. I was like, holy shit, it isn't solvable. But you do have to remember why you married each other in the first place also. And that doesn't mean you have to settle. But yes, the communication, makes a huge difference, so that they're actually on my side. They're not doing this to me. They're doing this for other reasons that has nothing to do with me.
Right. And that's a big part of it, is that it feels very personal.
Yeah.
We get triggered constantly. This is just what it is to be human, right? Because our relationships are so important to us. The slightest shift in a partner's tone of voice, facial expression, not to mention the words that are said, but usually the words are the least of it. And our internal radar is detecting either danger or safety. So when Andrew comes forward with defensiveness, it's immediately sending a signal to Grace that she's not going to be heard, right? He's in survival mode. And it's fight or flight time. And so then she is going to react in kind, and we're going to go into more disconnection. But she also has to recognize that she played a role in it by coming forward with criticism instead of saying, hey, when this happened, this is how it made me feel. Here's what I need next time. And check out her story instead of projecting it with an assumption as the truth. But what Andrew has to do is hard. And a lot of men don't know this, and women get defensive too, but it's a very common tactic with men, because men tend to have an underlying wound around feeling like a failure in their partner's eyes very easily, right? Criticism, they're very shame-based. Women are more often fear-based. So when you're saying, and the tricky part is sometimes you come forward really cleanly and kindly, and your partner can still interpret it as criticism, which is where it gets tricky. But we have to come forward as gently, but still assertively as possible to say, hey, listen, I'm not criticizing you, but I am upset. This did land on something for me, right? My own raw spot. We have to take responsibility that our partner triggers us, but the way we experience what's happened is our own. It's unique to our history, our personality, our psychology, our family of origin, how hangry we are in the moment, our menopausal symptoms that day.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
it gets filtered through. Now, for Andrew, though, he's got to learn instead of getting defensive, which shuts down every conversation. I mean, defensiveness is among, if not the most destructive way of responding. You're making it about your ego and your character instead of, you have to be able to hear feedback. So for people getting defensive, it's to say, hey, a part of me wants to defend myself. A part of me, the story is that my character's under attack and that what I do is never good enough, right? I really want to be able to hear what's upsetting you. Can you come forward in a way that's a little less critical? We've got to identify what's happening and share more about what's happening inside and ask for what we need, which is often, can you lower your voice a little bit? Not lower your voice, you're doing something wrong, but I want to hear you and I can't when I'm getting signals of danger. And people gotta have to come together to work on this as a team.
Yes. I think that's so insightful too. Okay, so you said women come often experience fear and men experience shame. I think that is so insightful, like the big mic drop of this conversation, because yes, that alone I think sheds so much light on this.
Makes it make sense, right?
Yeah, it does. And especially with nervous system dysregulation for women, for men, it's ego and shame.
Yep. And for women, it's
a lot to
feeling
unpack.
like, we're too much or not enough or unlovable or all these things. The fear of, if I communicate, if I really show you what I need and I put it out there, are you not going to respond? Which so many people will say, that feels like it would be worse to say it and not get my need met. And I empathize with that, but actually what we find when we do say it, first of all, a lot of the time we do get our needs met. Second of all, it really is a childlike thing, because in adulthood, it will hurt if we articulate our need and it isn't met. But the only way we'll get our needs met is if we say them clearly. And if we don't, we realize as adults we can handle it, and we can comfort and soothe ourselves with validation and compassion when a partner can't or won't be there for us.
Yeah, that's also really powerful. So how do we comfort ourselves and validate ourselves when we feel our partner's shut down, or we're in that messy middle where the conflict hasn't been resolved or addressed?
Yeah. So this is a big part of, I think, being able to be more assertive and being more connected to yourself, is learning to do this. Now, it's very simple. I don't say that it's easy, but I do give this exact process in the book in great detail to break it down so you can really do this. And for me, I feel like it's been the biggest game changer and a big part of why I wanted to share this with other people, that it comes down to two things: validation and self-compassion. And we can know we should be nice to ourselves, but that doesn't help us reap the benefits. We have to do the act. And the reality is, many of us, men and women, are nicer to like a bum on the street who's trying to mug you than we are to ourselves in a moment of pain and distress.
Yes.
That inner critic, because of survival mechanisms, outdated survival mechanisms, it's better for us, our brains think, to be hard on ourselves, to motivate us to change that will keep us alive, right? Your brain doesn't want you to be happy. It just wants you to live.
Right.
So it'd rather beat you up and try to get you to notice every flaw. But this is really not good for our mental health or well-being, and not necessary. So the work of Kristen Neff on self-compassion, I draw heavily from that. She's the foundational psychologist in the self-compassion space, where what the research shows is when you learn to talk to yourself in a kind and loving way. You still acknowledge mistakes. We want to learn from them. We don't want to stick our head in the sand. But when you talk to yourself the way you would one of your kids or your best friend or even a stranger, you know, when you can be as nice to yourself as you can to that person, that actually we do better, we feel better. So it's saying in a moment of pain, it's acknowledging. And I like to put my hand on my heart and just say, this is a moment of suffering, right? This is really hard. I put myself out there. I took a risk. I was vulnerable. I did such a good job and it still didn't land. I still didn't get hurt. And that really hurts. And that's the validation piece too, is acknowledging this sucks, right? I'm allowed to feel hurt and disappointed. And also, I am here with me. My adult me can be here for my own inner child in this moment, where I don't have to collapse back into how it felt when I was a kid and I didn't have an adult self. I'm here with me and I can hold space for what's happened, and I can be loving and kind about it and remind myself that if my partner can't or won't do this and meet me in these moments when I take a risk, at least I'm getting really, really powerful information about what this relationship can and cannot be. I can make choices. And also, guess what? I can take care of me. It may hurt, but I'm not going to die the way my nervous system thinks I will if I don't get the response I'm hoping for.
Beautiful. Yes. And I also think it's so beautiful if you can, with that inner child work, is just hold your, wherever the age was that you had the biggest upsets and hurt, if you can hold that little child's hand and imagine that little child speaking to you now, that's also very powerful.
Yes, and I have exercises around that in the book. And whether you want to, you know, some people don't like that woo-woo language of like inner child. However you want to think about it, psychologically, we have different parts of self. And even if you want to look at it as a metaphor, it's a way we can unblend from the reactive emotion for a minute and pull back a little and realize and reconnect to our adult self and realize a part of us is hurting. And it's as simple as talking to that part a little, right? Like sometimes you can, and I like to really visualize my little girl that's in my wrinkled older body. She's still in there. And she needs me, and we forget that. We forget that we need us, and we have a lot to offer ourselves that often we're totally disconnected from.
Yeah. And we also fail. I think you're right. Like we are kinder to bums on the street than we are to ourselves. And we really have to remember, like, and celebrate our achievement. We don't see ourselves the way other people see us. And I always say to my clients too, like, if you could see yourself the way other people see you, imagine that. Like, wow, just look at you. You're a badass. You do all these incredible things. You give back to the world. You're kind, loving. So we have to really sit and take stock in ourselves. And yes, this is
absolutely,
it really is important.
And one piece to add to that also tends to happen in relationships people don't realize. When you have somebody who's really critical toward a partner or quick to like cut down, or, you have people that when they feel activated in fight or flight, they want to hurt back, and they're not bad people. It's survival strategies. But those things that we do to our partner tend to be the way we self-nurture internally. So when you see someone who's really critical of others, whether they admit it or are even aware of it, because we're talking to ourselves all the time, we're just not always tuned in, you better believe that they are the first ones when something goes wrong to be like, you idiot, how could you fuck this up? What's wrong with you? It's your fault. I used to talk to myself in a harsher way. I don't do that anymore. When I'm disappointed in myself or I failed at something, which is part of life, I will acknowledge the disappointment, that maybe there's even some shame, that maybe a part of me is mad at myself. And I really try to bring the compassion I would bring to someone else to say, okay, this really sucks. Like, I messed up and now I'm sitting with a bunch of yucky feelings. And, can I have some compassion for myself that
Yeah.
this is what it is to be human and I can learn from this and it's okay to make mistakes.
Yes, that's how I grow, and I can forgive myself too. I can be kind
Yes.
and just forgive myself again and again. There's that
Yes.
Hapanu, I'm not pronouncing it right, prayer. It's thank you, I love you, forgive me, I'm sorry. And that you
Yes.
can say that to yourself 1,000 times a day. It's a very healing prayer where you're like, all right, yes, I fucked up. I feel ashamed, but like, guess what? Shame is not a sustainable business model. I like to say it doesn't work in relationships. It doesn't work in our relationships with our bodies and ourselves. Like, no one gets better through shame. Shame does not
No.
advance. It keeps your nervous system hijacked, and it just
And you're going to
shuts everything down.
experience enough of it naturally because,
Yeah.
shame is really, one of the reasons we have shame is to stop us from doing things that would get us kicked out of the herd, right? We're still
Mm,
herd animals. We won't survive
yeah.
if we do something bad and we're judged, we'll be ostracized and we'll die. So we're
Yeah.
going to feel enough shame just from life and our natural nervous system. We don't
Yeah.
need to add more. It just makes you collapse. But we're so self-shaming, and then we're shaming of others. And really, when you look at the healthy relationships from the Gottman research, they're the premier relationship psychologists who have done more than 40 years of longitudinal research, and they find the same patterns. In fact, famously, Dr. John Gottman can predict what couple will get divorced by listening to them interact for 90 seconds. Because, yeah,
Damn.
yeah, because there's the presence of what he calls the four horsemen: defensiveness, criticism, contempt, and stonewalling, which is where you ice someone out. And in healthy
Mm,
relationships, the same things are present. And this is, we tend to give our partners more benefit of the doubt. We may get upset and we may get mad, but we come back to repair. Couples that last and are healthy and happier
yeah.
repair often, they repair quickly, and they repair well. Both people are willing to take some accountability. Hey, what did I contribute to this? You know what? In the moment, I was so sure you were trying to screw me over. I was so mad. But I can see that was my story, right? I'm sorry
Yeah.
that I assumed. We're all going to mess up. Our nervous systems are designed to react so quickly to the smallest thing. But you've got to try to come back to that place of we're a team. We're not fighting to win. We're not trying to like win a court case. I say in the book, if you want to win, go to law school. There's no place in a relationship.
And even then, you can lose your case. There's no
Yes,
guarantee. So,
exactly.
or have
But
it
you're never
dismissed. Case dismissed.
right.
That's
It
it.
doesn't even work there.
Doesn't
You're
even work.
not going to ever win, though. In the relationship, it's always got to be the couple bubble, that it's you and your partner and you're a
Yeah.
team against reactivity. That's really the problem, is that
Yeah.
we can't let survival mode hijack our relationships.
Ugh. I freaking love all of this. I can't wait to re-listen to this when it comes out. I love just all of your insights and downloads, Colette. Thank you. Um, where can people find you and buy your amazing book, The Cost of Quiet, and listen to your TED Talk?
Yes. Oh, thank you for asking. So, the book, The Cost of Quiet: How to Have the Hard Conversations That Create Secure, Lasting Love, is available wherever books are sold. You can also go to thecostofquiet.com. Also on my website, Colette Jane Fehr, ColetteJaneFehr, which is a weird spelling. And I've got all kinds of freebies there too, and great tools that you can use to help you communicate right away. My TEDx talk, if you Google it, you'll find it on my website, but it should pop up everywhere. Like you said, it was a TED editor's pick. And I also have a great podcast for midlife called Insights from the Couch that you were a guest on, which is
Can't wait.
wonderful, and gave our audience such good information. And also Instagram and Substack are probably the places I'm the most active. It's at Colette Jane Fehr, and on Substack, Secrets from a Therapist. I'm
Thank
too
you,
many
Colette.
places. I need to just take a nap.
Well, thank you for giving us your time today. Now you can go take a nap.
I will not be doing that, but thank you.
If you loved this episode, follow or subscribe to the Midlife Realignment wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube, and leave a review to help other women find this show.